minute. Once the question has been asked, you're not to say anything more.
Well, I can answer. I don't thank God that George Bush is the president. I'll answer the question because the congressman hasn't. You know, what we see here tonight in this debate and throughout this election is someone who's desperately trying to distance himself from the very president and failed policies he rubber stamped. You know, in this country, right now, George Bush is taking our country in the wrong direction. And we need someone that's going to ask tough questions, not just rubber stamp him. That's not saying I don't believe that the President of the United States deserves respect, and I will gladly listen to everything that he has to say. But when he's wrong, I'm going to tell him. And, you know, for me, when we talk about, you know, Ed Koch and what he said, and you quoted him, you wrote in a constituent letter, which I read and was quite abusive, by the way, that said, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm glad to be opposed by the likes of you. Like Ed Koch, I thank God every night that George Bush is the president. That's wrong. You know, when you disagree with people's politics and there's 600 people show up in a room and want to talk to you about an issue, I don't care if they don't disagree with you. You should go there and talk to them. That's your job. You represent them. I've had town hall meetings right here with people about why their taxes are so high. You know how tough that is to stand up here in Levittown with how high the taxes are here in Levittown and talk to people about why they're high and what we can do about it, or property tax assessment in Nassau County. You know, one person came up to me and said, you should come in here with a bulletproof vest on. These people want to kill you. But they deserve the right to talk to their representative. You pay a lot of money in taxes. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to have your congressman come down, have town hall meetings. You know, I've never seen you have a town hall meeting to talk about the issue. In 2.5 years in office, I've had 65 town hall meetings on taxes, on gang activity here in Levittown, on cleaning up abandoned and polluted waste sites at the Liberty site in Farmingdale, on challenging your assessment. I've had 9 tax assessment seminars, 12 tax exemption seminars, so people can save money on their taxes. When it's one thing after another, you know, that the problems that are facing this country, and they deserve to talk to their congressman. You have never made yourself available to these people here on Long Island, and that's part of the problem. We need someone that represents us, not the insiders in Washington.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
My question is, who is running the ports of the United States today? I think that the Dubai company is still running the ports in the United States. I don't think they've been removed from there yet.
Thank you. We start with Mr. Mejias.
Was that a question?
Yes.
You know, the port security bill is actually, you know, Congressman King talks about the port security bill. Now, what he's not telling you about the port security bill is that they took out a provision where companies would have to do background checks and screen people that work at our ports. So now a convicted felon can work at our ports, and 3% of the cargo is being checked. You know, cargo that comes in from overseas is not checked overseas because of a boondoggle for the big corporations that don't want to pay a little bit more money to screen cargo before they come to this country. You know, we're selling out to the Walmarts and the Lowe's and these big box stores. They want to import this stuff without paying to have this cargo screened. None of it is being screened right now. The Port Security Act that he's taking all this credit for is only been half funded. You know, the Port Security Act calls for $400 million in funding, but only $200 million of it is going to be funded. Our ports are not safe. Our airports are not safe. You know, we have not implemented the recommendations of the 9/11 Commission. We are not pre-screening passengers overseas and here in America before they get on our planes. We are not screening cargo that goes on passenger planes the way we should be. You know, and a lot of these things have just been a boondoggle for some of these people that donate to these politicians. The nuclear test material, the machines that we use to test the presence of any nuclear radiation on cargo. We spent $286 million in this program, and it doesn't work. It's detecting toilets and cat litter and stuff that, you know, has nothing to do with terrorism, because that particular company spent a lot of money lobbying on their lobbyists, and they got a $286 million contract. So, you know, what you say about, the fact is our Homeland Security is not where it should be. We have not implemented the recommendations of the 9/11 Commission. There's a lot more that needs to be done in this country, and we need someone in Washington that's going to ask those tough questions. You know, look, when your Homeland Security funding gets cut by 40%, $83 million, I don't care what the money was, what the funding was 2 years ago, and you're the chairman of the committee, you're either irrelevant, ineffective, or asleep at the switch, and that's why we need a change in Washington.
Since Mr. Mejias didn't do it, let me answer the question. The fact is, Dubai ports has absolutely nothing at all to do with running our ports. They are out. In fact, they're never in. They're out. Now, as far as the provision you're talking about, there was absolutely no requirements. The law currently, before I passed the Port Security Act, involved the TWIC, the Transportation Workers Identification Cards. And it left it to the Secretary of Homeland Security to define what crimes there would be. We added the crime. We specifically put in the crimes of espionage, terrorism, sedition, treason, or conspiracy to commit any of those, in addition to whatever else the Secretary of Homeland Security decides to do. We added to it, not subtracted. Secondly, 100% of cargo is screened. It's screened overseas, and some of it is screened here. Now, is it fully scanned? No. The fact is we have a container security initiative plan, a CT-PAT plan, where we have overseas inspectors, and the bill we passed, which by the way passed by 410 to 2, and it passed unanimously in the Senate, so it must be a pretty good bill. And it was a bipartisan bill. Again, you talk about bringing the country together. I'm chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. On such a divisive issue as this, I was able to bring together both parties, working with the Democrats, working with Republicans, to come up with a bipartisan bill. And we also have radiation port monitors will be at our ports, covering 98% of the goods coming into this country by the end of next year, 85% by the end of this year. We're also having 3 pilot programs overseas as far as using X-ray scanning. That was something we worked out with Senator Lautenberg, New Jersey. That is also in the bill. Again, reaching across party lines, trying to get a comprehensive bill. And as far as the 9/11 Commission, I repeat again, the chairman of the 9/11 Commission, Governor Tom Paine, has strongly endorsed me, saying that I was there at the beginning of the war against terrorism, and I'm leading the charge right now. He's proud to endorse me.
Okay, please.
Right back here, I'd like to say so.
I'm going to call on the other lady in the maroon.
Hi, I'm very concerned about the new voting machines and voter fraud and lack of paper trails that we're seeing coming from the devote machines and other supposed innovations in the country, and I would ask all candidates to address that issue, please.
It's a very serious issue. It's primarily a state issue. The federal government has to get involved if there's any evidence of illegality, irregularity. Obviously, we're running for election. Dave Mejias and I are campaigning awfully hard. The last thing we want is to have a vote for us go to the other guy. So I strongly support that. I also think, though, that we have to make sure that when people vote, that they are who they say they are, which is why I voted last month to have ID requirements for people who want to vote, to make sure that you don't have imposters coming in to vote, you don't have illegal immigrants coming in to vote, you don't have people from other areas coming in to vote, and this was unfortunately opposed by many Democrats. But to me, this is just basic common sense. As far as what has to be done, as far as machines, we're trying to go with the new technology, say we. Various states are going with new technology, a lot of it's not working. It has to be corrected. There's no more sacred right, I can't think of any more sacred right in democracy, certainly, than the right to have your vote count. So, I don't know, maybe we have a difference. I don't know what it would be, but I certainly would support anything that has to be done to ensure that whatever machines are being used, whatever technology is being used, is effective and it sounds and it accurately reflects the way a person wants to vote.
Our right to vote in this country is, as Congressman said, very sacred. I learned about politics from my father. In the 60s, my father was an anti-communist, a pro-democracy freedom fighter in Cuba. He fought against Castro. He was put in jail for 4 years just for what he thought and what he said. With his uncle, my brother, who he sort of tortured and killed right in front of him. We need to do everything we can to preserve our democracy. Here in New York State, we have some serious questions and some serious issues that come before us. Do we do, the optical scanners? Do we do the electronic voting? Do we stay with what's going on now, which is what that county executive Steve Levy wants to stay with the lever machines? We need to do everything that we can as elected officials, both in the county legislature, and if I'm elected to Congress, to make sure that the states have the resources to ensure free and fair elections. If there has to be a choice between an electronic voting machine, I would prefer the optical scanner because there is a paper trail there. But we need to make sure that every single state has the resources that it needs to make sure that as many people come out and vote as possible. The machines are only part of the problem here in this country. The other part of the problem is that people just aren't voting because they're so cynical and pessimistic about government and politicians. They don't think that politicians actually work for them. People don't want to show up at the polls because they don't think their vote counts. It doesn't matter. So we need to make sure that our election machines have a paper trail, that they're safe and effective, that they guarantee our democracy. But as elected officials, we need to clean up government so that more people want to come out and vote, and they just don't think that politics